Hello everybody, this is Jeff Janess and welcome to our last episode discussing raster analysis. So far we've discussed several common methods for analyzing and working with raster data, including reclassification, zonal statistics, focal statistics, and using raster datasets in mathematical operations. And then we discussed several ways to analyze the landscape surface using a DEM, or digital elevation model, to derive slope, aspect, solar insolation, hillshades, and landscape curvatures. And we looked at different ways you can use these topographic measures in your analysis and maps. Now, to wrap up this lecture, I'd like to discuss a few issues that we run into occasionally with the raster tools. We're going to look at issues with geographic rasters, including what happens when we don't use geodesic methods to analyze them. And in this case, geographic raster means a raster that is in geographic or latitude and longitude coordinates. We'll look at what a z-factor is and when that's appropriate to use, and then we'll go over some common mistakes people make with neighborhood focal statistics, and we're going to wrap it up with a quick look at how we can inadvertently make rasters shift position when we analyze them. And I'm going to show you a couple of images of ArcGIS Pro tools in this video. And these tools are from ArcGIS Pro version 3.3.1, so if you're using a different version of the software, then these tool windows might look a little different. Now, first, some of the tools do not work well with geographic data. By this I mean raster datasets that are in latitude-longitude coordinate system rather than a projected coordinate system. The problems I'm going to describe here don't apply to projected data, and it would be nice if we could just project the rasters so that we'd avoid any problems, and that's certainly a possible solution, but unfortunately you can't project a raster without damaging it. So that solution does come at a cost. You always lose information when you project a raster. If you'd like, you can look back at the lab exercise on projecting rasters from the Projections and Datums module for an example of this. Now, the ArcGIS Pro raster tools are getting better with handling geographic data, and future releases will likely fix more of the tools, so it's possible that these problems won't be problems anymore when you view this video. But for now, these issues are worth knowing about. For the tools that analyze the topographic surface, like the stuff we discussed in the last two videos, the problems stem from the fact that the ArcGIS incorrectly calculates horizontal distance over the landscape. I'll explain that in a second. For now, though, understand that if the tools offer an option for geodesic calculations, or if the help files state that the tool uses geodesic methods automatically, then you should be fine with geographic rasters. Remember that using geodesic methods means that ArcGIS is using spherical and spheroidal trigonometry to calculate accurate distances over the true curved shape of the planet, not trying to pretend it's a flat, projected version of the planet. So latitude and longitude coordinates are describing locations on the true curved shape of the planet. Therefore, you need to use geodesic methods to get accurate results. For example, the original slope and aspect tools offer the option to use geodesic methods. If your DEM is in geographic coordinates, then you should definitely choose that option. Otherwise, your slope and aspect values will be incorrect. And as of September 2024, the original curvature tools do not offer any method to accurately work with geographic data. However, the newer Surface Parameters tool does use geodesic methods automatically, and it includes options for slope, aspect, and several types of curvature, so it's generally a good option over the original slope, aspect, and curvature tools. Just be careful if you ever try to compare curvature data calculated from the original curvature tool with this new Surface Parameters tool, because the internal algorithms are very different between them, and I show some examples of this in the third lecture video in this module, video right before the one you're watching now. Also, as of the time of this video, the hillshade tool doesn't offer any geodesic options. It's not at this point a tool in ArcGIS Pro that accurately creates hillshades from geographic data. Hillshade tool does offer a z-factor option, which we're going to discuss in a minute, but setting the appropriate z-factor won't make the hillshade accurate, and I'll explain that in a second as well, but it's generally not a big problem since really, hillshades are mostly just used for fun or for aesthetic purposes. Still look good even though they're not technically accurate. And of course, we usually put the sun in the wrong place anyway when we're making a hillshade. Now, as of late 2024, the solar insolation tools will work on geographically projected data, but only if you go to the environmental settings and set the output coordinate system to some projected coordinate system. In this case, you can use a DEM in latitude and longitude coordinates, but the installation rasters you end up with will be projected. The tool help files don't explain why this is, but it is possible that the tool just doesn't use geodesic calculations. Therefore, it might be projecting the DEM into a projected coordinate system first before analyzing it. That's my theory. Historically, the installation tools wouldn't work at all on geographic data, so this is a step forward. Now, if the tools don't use geodesic methods, then they're going to be making incorrect assumptions about the data. Basically, ArcGIS assumes that the X, Y, and Z units are the same, and this just isn't the case for geographic data. First, the X and Y units are both in degrees, which are angular units, while the Z units are linear, usually meters or feet. And even the X and Y units are different from each other. They're both angular units in degrees, but they're defined differently. Latitude is defined as the angle up from the equatorial plane. Longitude is defined as the angle east or west around the polar axis. Now, take a look back at the first lecture in the Projections and Datums module for a more detailed discussion of latitude and longitude. So why is this a problem? Well, if you don't use geodesic methods, then ArcGIS assumes that the raster cells are square. Therefore, it assumes that the cell size going east to west is the same as the cell size going north to south. It looks that way on the map. But we don't live in that world. In our world, these cells actually are trapezoids on the ground. The east-west distance is not the same as the north-south distance. More specifically, the east-west distance is shorter than the north-south distance, with the rare exception if you're working right on the equator. The end result is that ArcGIS underestimates the east-west gradient. This causes errors with all the rest of the surface measurements, such as slope, aspect, curvature, insolation, and the hillshade. And the errors just get worse the farther away you are from the equator. And this is an important point, so I'm just going to dig into the details for a second. Now, most topographic measures, such as slope, aspect, curvature, hillshades, they depend on two variables. First, how the landscape slopes as you move north to south, and this is known as the north-south gradient. Second, they need to know how the landscape slopes as you move from east to west, and this is known as the east-west gradient. Now, with geographic data, ArcGIS Pro calculates the north-south gradient accurately because it calculates the true size of the cell when you move from north to south, basically the accurate height of the trapezoid. So the north-south gradient is good. Unfortunately, ArcGIS then just treats the cells as if the distance east to west is the same as the distance north to south, or as if they were squares. And since the east-west distance is actually less than the north-south distance, the east-west gradient is underestimated. And remember, we're only discussing rasters and geographic coordinates here. Geographic raster cells are trapezoids on the actual surface of the planet, and therefore the width of the cell is always less than the height. Now, for example, suppose we had three raster cells sitting next to each other going east to west, and these cells had heights of 100 meters, 70 meters, and 40 meters. Suppose that the north to south size of these cells is 75 meters and the east to west size is 50 meters. And to get the east-west gradient, ArcGIS needs to determine the change in elevation and the change in horizontal distance. Change in elevation is easy. Landscape rises 60 meters as you go from east to west. The problem lies in the horizontal distance. If you don't use geodesic methods, then ArcGIS will assume that the east-west distance is the same as north-south, or 150 meters total as you move from the right cell to the left cell. Therefore, it will calculate the east-west gradient equal to 60 meters rise over 150 meters horizontal, which is equal to a 40% slope. But in the real world, there's only 100 meters horizontal distance over these cells, and therefore the true slope should be 60 meters rise over 100 meters horizontal, or a 60% slope. So ArcGIS makes this initial error in the calculations, underestimating the east-west gradient. Then that error is propagated through all the rest of the calculations to get the rest of the surface measurements. Nothing that comes after this initial error is accurate. So, just to say it one last time, always use geodesic options when calculating topographic characteristics from a geographic DEM. If you don't, then the topographic data will be wrong. So what about z-factors? Well, some tools offer this thing called a z-factor to convert your elevation units. Hillshade tool offers this option, and so does the original slope and curvature tool. Z-factors are conversion factors you enter that tells ArcGIS that the Z units are not the same as the X and Y units. Therefore, the tool needs to convert them to be the same as the X and Y units. Z-factors are intended for cases when, for example, your DEM is projected and your X and Y units might be in meters, while your Z units or your elevation units are in feet. In this case, it is appropriate and important that you set the correct conversion factor. In this scenario in particular, we'd enter a value of 0.3048 to convert the elevation in feet to elevation in meters, so it would be the same as the X and Y units. Now, ArcGIS Pro will sometimes, but not always, suggest a Z-factor for latitude and longitude data, but this estimate is just based on the height of the cell, meaning the distance along the Y-axis or along a line of longitude. This Z-factor will not solve the problem and is no substitute for geodesic methods. It pretends that the latitude and longitude values are on some flat Cartesian graph. It calculates the change in latitude decimal degree values that are equivalent to 1 meter in movement in the north or south. That wouldn't be so bad, but it doesn't account at all for the width of the cell getting smaller as you move away from the equator. And because of this, setting a Z-factor to adjust for latitude and longitude data will never give you accurate results. The only time it is appropriate is when you don't care about the accuracy, and such as when you're generating a hillshade just for the aesthetics of it. And as I said, if you use geodesic methods, you're going to be fine. And ArcGIS is steadily evolving, and hopefully we'll get to a point where we won't have to worry about this issue at all. We're just not there yet. Okay, I think that's enough on issues with geographic rasters, and the next common issue I want to discuss is that of neighborhood-based analysis. By neighborhood-based analysis, I mean any type of analysis where you make a new raster where the cell values that describe some local region around each original cell. This includes the focal statistics we discussed in the first lecture video in this module. It also includes topographic analysis, where the slope and aspect and curvature of a cell is calculated based on elevation values around that cell. The main problem we stumble over here is that when we want to use a neighborhood analysis to describe conditions within some area we're interested in, maybe some land management unit or inside a property boundary, in order to describe conditions inside that polygon, at some point we're going to need to extract the raster cells that lay within that polygon. Extracting those cells is easy enough. There are multiple tools to do it, including the clip raster tool and the extract by mass tool. And, if we wanted to know, say, the elevation patterns within the Coconino National Forest, all we need to do is extract the cells from the digital elevation model that lie within the Coconino boundary. Now, the problem is that sometimes we extract the raster cells too quick. If we clip our source raster to the polygon first and then try to do some neighborhood analysis on it, well, then we've just ruined our ability to get accurate data at the edge of the polygon because we've lost all the cells just outside the polygon. If a cell from a DEM is right at the boundary of a polygon, then we need the neighboring elevation values right outside the polygon in order to calculate accurate slopes, aspects, and curvature values at that cell. The installation value at that cell often depends partly on elevation values kilometers away from the cell, and if all those elevation values are gone because you clipped it out, then we just can't calculate accurate data anymore. The same issue applies to any focal statistics analysis, such as neighborhood means and topographic position indexes. And, in fact, the surface tools we've been discussing won't even try to calculate values for cells at the edge of the raster. If you calculated a slope or an aspect raster from this example here, the new slope and aspect raster would be one cell smaller than the original all around the boundary. If you had calculated the slope and aspect first, on the other hand, and then clipped those new rasters to your analysis area, well, then you'd have complete data sets describing slope and aspect in your area. So you're going to have to generate your neighborhood-based raster, and you're going to have to clip to your analysis area. And the trick here is to just generate the neighborhood raster first and clip second. Then you'll be fine. And there's another issue with the focal statistics tool with regards to latitude and longitude data. At least there is as of late 2024. If you want a circular neighborhood and you want to specify the radius of your circle in meters or feet, then you need to use a data set that is already projected into a coordinate system that uses meters or feet. If your raster's in geographic coordinates, then you can only specify the circle radius in terms of cells or in units of degrees. And in either case, the circle won't be a true circle on the ground unless you happen to be calculating directly on the equator. And just as geographic raster cells become narrower as you move away from the equator, so do circles get squashed into narrow ovals as they move toward the poles. So your neighborhood analysis around each cell reaches out farther to the north and south than it does to the east and west. Now, the last common issue I'd like to discuss in this video is that of shifting rasters. I have a demonstration of this in the second lecture video of the Geoprocessing and Automation module, about 5.5 minutes in. If you want to see this issue in action, take a look at that video. Now, I demonstrate the problem there and also how to use the snap raster environment to fix it. So the problem is that you do some process or analysis to your new raster. The new raster has all the cells shifted over a little bit. You may or may not care about that, but if you do care, this can get kind of annoying. The deal is that when these raster tools run, they produce a new raster, and they have to decide where the origin point of that new raster is. In this example, I have a raster of some climate data, and I have a polygon boundary of the Coconino National Forest, and I want to analyze the climate data within the Coconino. My analysis tool is going to produce a new raster that's clipped to the boundary of the forest. Now remember, the raster is just a bunch of rows and columns of cells, and the origin of our raster is the upper left corner of the raster. Rows and columns are built out from that origin point. So the tool that's going to create a new raster has to decide where to place the origin for that new raster. And if the new origin doesn't align with the original raster, and it rarely does, then the cells wind up slid over like this. And like I said, this may or may not be a problem when you do a single tool. It can be a problem when you're doing several functions in a row. If it slides this much with one run of the tool, then will it slide that much again with the next run? And eventually, who knows where the rasters get slid over to? You really have a lot of potential to lose significant spatial precision when the rasters slide around like this. Okay, I think that covers the major issues I wanted to go over, so let's wrap up this video and move on to the lab exercises. Now, some of them are pretty cool and give us a chance to try out some of these raster analysis tools we've been discussing. Well, thanks so much for listening, everybody. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.